I need for President Biden to be making it rain with executive action so we can be like, another one, thank you. Another one, thank you. So thank you, Joe Biden and Democrats. Don't mess this up.
But I also think anyone who is voting for Trump because of Amber Rose probably also drank bleach during the pandemic.
Well, dang, they were just coming for you because you are a truth teller and that is very disruptive.
I was one of those people who was like, I'm never gonna shoot a gun, never gonna hold a gun. The likelihood that I do get one in the next year is high.
Oh my goodness. Hey y'all, welcome to Wait a Minute, a show where we take the conversation out of the group chat, tell the truth, and kiki with friends. And I'm Joyelle Nicole Johnson. This week, I've really had to book some plane tickets to Europe to get through. What have you guys been doing to get through?
I'm actually Allison, and I've been barely getting through, if I'm honest. I'm super tired, but last night I was like, Lord, just come upon me.
Lay some hands.
Give me the strength. Speak to me, Lord. One of my favorite songs is Speak to My Heart, Holy Spirit. And I was like, please. But yeah, that's what I've been in a prayerful state to get through these past couple of days.
You had to pray.
Yes, prayer changes things.
I know that's right. Today, you got to pray.
And I am Alencia Johnson. In addition to praying, I had to honestly spend time with my family this week to get through because they will remind you of the bigger picture. I had to stay grounded a little bit. There's a lot of prayers in there because remember I told y'all my daddy's a pastor, so we was praying too.
Put me on the prayer list.
I got you. I got all of us on the prayer list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my mama prays for me daily.
So as you know, this week has been quite a week. But when is it not actually quite a week, especially when we think about political violence? And so before we get into all of the things, I want us to just wait a minute and ask, how are y'all doing?
Well, we know how Ashley is doing.
Because you just got off a plane from Milwaukee at the RNC.
Yeah. So my other Black job is I work at CNN, and it's an honor and privilege. And I got to go to the RNC. Very few Democratic voices were there, but it was hard to be there. I'm on the flight when the shooting in Pennsylvania happened involving former President Trump. And I don't know what I'm landing into. And I already was nervous going into an environment where I have said very controversial things that are anti-Trump, because I believe his policies when he was president, and even before he became president, are harmful to Black and brown people, and working class people, and women, and young people, and immigrants, and queer people, and the list could go on.
Everybody except for
his wife, his kids.
Yeah. So I already was kind of like on alert. I had some challenges while I was there, but it was a little bit more than just like my spidey senses feeling off. It was, I landed and everyone was talking about unity, but then I realized we have different definitions of unity. And so I felt like I was surrounded by people who only wanted me to be 65% of myself, only wanted me to talk a certain part of the conversation. So I felt myself being present around people and biting my tongue, not saying everything that I felt like I wanted to say. And when I did, I was called angry or I was laughed at. And so I just don't have to deal with that. I mean, I did it as my job, but that took a toll on me, and I'm tired also because I had really crazy hours. I was on the graveyard shift, but it's made me weary, but it's also made me clearer on what our assignment is moving forward.
You got to understand the assignment. You said you weary. I would like to say I'm angry. I could be an angry Black woman. Why am I angry? Because I watched some of the RNC. That made me really angry. I can't even believe you were there. I wouldn't have been able to be there, but having to watch it was, I feel like I looked the same way Trump did while he was watching it. That's the way I was looking at the RNC.
Except the moments when he was asleep, because you were awake.
Listen, I might have fallen asleep a couple times too. Some of them speeches wasn't hitting Amber Rose. But anyway.
We come back to that.
We will go back to that. But yeah, I'm going to say I'm angry. I'm an angry Black lady, and I'm allowed to be. Angry, weary,
I am in the middle of those. I'm a bit frustrated, and that.
Oh, I was called that too, but go ahead.
Well, dang, they
Yeah.
were just coming for you because you are a truth teller, and that is very disruptive. And non-black women, when a black woman checks them with facts, they get into a tizzy. So
Baby.
you were doing the right thing and letting them be in their feelings. I'm frustrated because in this moment, there is so much at stake, and I know we're getting into all of this, but I just feel as though those who have less to lose than us, those with a lot of privilege, continue to forget what we will lose if things are to go south. And so I get frustrated when we are not clear-eyed and not listening to those closest to the pain. So I've been a little frustrated. And also some of the frustration has been with friends of mine, particularly friends in this work. And we're gonna get out of that. I use that to help energize me and keep me moving forward and clear-eyed on the path forward. But yeah, it's a little frustrating. And it's, you know what, why it's even more frustrating? Because we're always in this position, right? Like, I mean,
Yes.
Ashley and I work together we've worked together in numerous capacities, but like we'd be on the phone at like midnight talking about the same challenges that we have been having with decision makers and all of this work. So I am frustrated. You mentioned the Republican National Convention. I think we should talk about it, about what we saw, what we didn't see. And one of the things that was very clear is what they think, or how little they think, of Black folks. And what we will fall for, what we will support. I mean, you saw, what was his name? Byron Donald. Is that his name? I always forget his name because I don't pay him any attention.
I'm not committing that name to memory.
No.
Sitting next to Donald Trump, you know, his African American right there.
Yeah.
And then them trotting out Amber Rose. They had this rap video that came out.
Girl, don't even put rap in front of that thing.
Right.
Whatever it was, they also decided to launch. First of all, they said they wanted to tone down the rhetoric around political violence, but then put out some sneakers with the words "fight, fight, fight" on them. And I'm not surprised by it, but I am very annoyed. I am very annoyed with how they are communicating to Black people, especially because Donald Trump has a celebrity that has been in Black spaces. And so they are using that to get Black voters to pay attention. But like, look how little they think of us. Amber Rose, who doesn't really identify as Black, although she came at Joyelle Reid and said that she does identify, but then everybody pulled out the receipts and said, take the tweet down.
She said she like OJ. She said, I'm not Black, I'm Amber. That was her thing. She not Black, but she do have a forehead tattoo. And I do kind of love that a forehead tattoo was allowed to speak at the Republican National Convention. That's how unserious y'all are. Y'all had a forehead tattoo on the national stage. I know Candace Owens was jealous.
So I like reality TV. That's like one of my guilty pleasures. So I watch Love and Hip Hop all the time. And I'm not trying to start no beef. Jocelyn Hernandez was not one of my favorite characters on Love and Hip Hop, right?
She wrong.
But we owe her an apology.
Sorry, sis.
Okay? From what was it? College
College Hill?
College
Hill?
Dropout or something.
Oh.
Whatever the BET show was when she read Amber Rose fulfilled. Look, here's the thing that is frustrating me with the Republican Party and their effort to court Black voters. Last week we talked about this, that it is okay for any politician to come into our community and ask us for a vote. But they think we're going to support Donald Trump because of a shooting and because of felony convictions. Now, 34 at that, and perhaps more to come. The thing, though, that is like tricky about this narrative is that people try and act like the reason why Black people and maybe Black men are supporting Donald Trump is because of his economic policies. But the way they court us is not through his economic policies. When Donald Trump was in Detroit at a Black church filled with white folks, when he was asked about Black entrepreneurship, he said there's too much crime. He doesn't have a plan for us. When they roll out their policies, they roll out their African Americans for Trump at the RNC, it just doesn't make sense. It's all posture. It's all disrespectful about crime and about a rap video with Amber Rose and some dude.
And they said she was a rapper and she didn't
She
rap
ain't
in the rap video, which I thought was very interesting.
She
as
dated
well.
rappers.
She dated rappers. She a baby mama to a rapper, you know. But I also think anyone who is voting for Trump because of Amber Rose probably also drank bleach during the pandemic. You know what I'm saying? Like it's ivermectin vibes. So that was a lost cause anyway, boo. And if that's the biggest celebrity you could get, LOL.
I had a well-informed thought, and then you said
that
drink
it's
bleach. And I'm gonna go back to my point.
Yeah. She said well-informed.
Well-informed.
That was a well-informed thought.
Yeah, but to this point, the saddest part about the Republican Party is that they actually didn't learn from their mistakes of the past. So remember, they trotted out Herschel Walker, like he was the ideal Black Republican candidate that would have taken down a Raphael Warnock. And we see what happened there. So why are you doing the same thing, leaning into the most egregious stereotypes of us and thinking that that's enough, when there's actually a whole record of Donald Trump going after Black people? I mean, before he even got into politics, all these things that come, I love Reverend Sharpton, because he's like, I'm in New York, I'm gonna tell you about who Donald Trump is, okay?
Yeah.
And he was taking out a full page ad in the New York Times about the now exonerated five, known as the Central Park Five, the housing discrimination, the way that he treated people on his reality shows. Donald Trump is no friend to Black people and Black communities, and we are not going to get hoodwinked and bamboozled to believe that again.
No. And when Amber Rose said she did her research, I was thinking about all those things, and I was like, what research did you do, boo?
Right.
So confused.
Your Google ain't my Google.
No, you're...
The other piece that I cannot stand is how they are co-opting our oppression.
Child.
They are trying to make this man a martyr. Mm-hmm. They are trying to make it seem as they are going through this countrywide oppression and using that as a scare tactic. And I think it's really frustrating, and it actually is a slap in the face to what our ancestors have actually gone through in this country. And the fact that they think so low of us is disrespectful, and shame on you, any Black Republican, especially y'all Black Republican men, who still prop up Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing about this whole unity thing? It's a little off of Black folks and Donald Trump, but the unity thing in the Republican Party, that was a lot of the mainstream media narrative. That was a facade. First of all, like I said, after the first 24 hours of the shooting, the now tapped, nominated J.D. Vance, who is the vice presidential nominee, he put out one of the most aggressive, blaming Democrats basically for the shooting to happen, which in and of itself is dangerous and perpetuates more violence. Number two, they said they wanted unity, but it was very clear as soon as they started giving their speeches from the podium, they were throwing shots. They were not actually trying to have unity with the entire country. They were trying to bring unity within their party. But number three, there were some really important people missing from the convention. Yes, Nikki Haley showed up and Ron DeSantis showed up. That's because they want to have a future in the Republican Party, Trump's Republican Party. But you know who wasn't there? George W. Bush, a former Republican president. Mike Pence, the man's former vice president.
Yeah.
Many of his cabinet secretaries. So there isn't real...
Name them.
Name them. Name them. Name them. Sutton, shout out to you, boo. So it's not a whole unity thing. It is a unity moment for MAGA.
Yeah.
Not a unity moment for the Republican Party. Because there are many Republicans that still feel like they don't fit in this version of the Republican Party and are trying to figure out what to do in November.
And I'm just going to say it because I'm petty. When Nikki Haley came out, I heard some boos. I definitely heard some boos.
Mitch McConnell got booed.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
I was like, what is happening in that
And the other thing
center?
too, well, it's definitely not, there's nothing about unity at this Republican National Convention. I don't know if you all saw on Instagram or X or whatever the videos of Matt Gaetz and Kevin McCarthy.
Child.
The girls was tussling.
Yeah.
With his
Matt
bow
Gaetz
ties.
with his bow ties.
Which was like actually
Botox in the
hilarious.
brows. He
It's
had some
like
highlighter
literally
and contour.
like eyes up here.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But
Yeah.
the other thing that I was really appalled by, so this conversation, they're trying to say, hey, we're trying to tone down this political violence rhetoric when we could run a whole tape for hours of Donald Trump being very violent in his language that has led to a whole insurrection happening on January 6th. They were holding up signs that said mass deportation now.
Yes.
Now.
When J.D. Vance's immigrant wife,
So
first generation, came
the
out.
gaslighting of it. So you can
Gaslighting.
say all that you want, this pomp and circumstance. Also, J.D. Vance did not use the word abortion once. And that tells you that our movement, our pro-abortion movement is
Yes.
working because they are scared
Yeah.
to say the word abortion because they know that that is a losing issue for them. And to be honest, I think it's still going to be the issue that is going to carry us over in November. But when I was looking at those signs, that was so scary for me because I know that our society talks about immigration, particularly through a Latino lens, but that impacts a whole lot of our
Yes.
family in the diaspora.
Yeah,
Right?
for
We
sure.
saw what was happening in Haiti. We see what is happening all over. And so just seeing those signs and the panning to those signs constantly was extremely problematic for me. And the fact that they were on stage trying to distance themselves from Project 2025, the playbook.
Lies.
Okay?
Lies.
And I don't think people are really paying attention to what is happening in Project 2025. And the fact that this is actually the agenda, the continuation of the agenda that was implemented in the 1980s under Ronald Reagan. And they want to do even more extreme things to just take us back to when this country was founded. As you always say, this country was founded on political violence.
Yeah. So for folks who don't know, Project 2025 is a almost 1,000-page document that goes from A to Z, how they would dismantle the United States government and really put in an authoritarian approach to government, including dismantling the Department of Education, including limiting the Civil Rights Division and the Department of Justice, and making it, right now, in theory, the Department of Justice is supposed to be a separate entity from the White House so that they can put charges against Hunter Biden, put charges against Donald Trump. Under Project 2025, it would go underneath the president, which then would mean the firewall that has existed no longer exists. There are so many other things in there around climate, around healthcare, around abortion
rights.
that would allow you to track women's periods. And if you, how invasive is that? And so it's a ploy, a plot, and it's associated with Donald Trump. And it was rolled out about a couple of months ago. Taraji, we talked about this last week. Taraji mentioned it at the BET Awards, but we need to stay aware and woke, really, about what their plan is, because they aren't even hiding it.
No, well, I mean, he's trying to act like he's distancing
himself.
himself from it, but that's not true. And shout out to Michael Harriet,
Yes.
friend of the show, friend in my head. If you go to his X, is it called X now,
Yeah.
I guess? His X thread about how Project 2025 affects Black people specifically, because they are really trying to dismantle us.
Yeah.
They are. And I just want to say one other piece of that I really think about as someone who grew up in Virginia, living in the DMV area. And one of the things that they want to do is get rid of career federal employees.
Yes.
And Black people, particularly in that area, have been able to attain wealth and security in a way that makes PG County one of the, a county with the the wealthiest Black population. They are trying to get rid of these jobs, and that is going to really harm a lot of Black families for generations in
Yes.
that area, throughout the entire
The
country.
Yeah.
And they
Especially
want
in
to
my
then
area.
get rid of that, which are pathways to increase, move you out of the middle class, move you into the middle class, and they want to replace them with people who will kiss the ring of the president,
Yes.
Donald Trump.
That's right.
So I don't know also if you all saw the reason why the Department of Justice going under the president is problematic, because most recently the case around the classified documents was thrown out. Now, wowed, a Trump appointed judge, Eileen Cannon, has decided to dismiss the case because she said that the way the special counsel was appointed was against the law. Now, nobody dismissed Robert Hur from the investigation on Biden's
Wow.
documents. Nobody dismissed the special counsel that brought charges against Hunter Biden. So there's just so many. It's that we don't even have to wait for Project 2025 to potentially come in effect if Donald Trump wins. Things are already happening now, and we are literally standing in the breach, which is why I become so animated about this election, that it is not about the candidate. It is about protecting our constitutional rights.
Absolutely. And that's what we were screaming about in 2016, especially in the women's reproductive rights movement, was the judges.
Yes.
Yes.
Supreme Court on down, because the Supreme Court matters, obviously, as you can see now, but going all the way down to these courts where a judge is going to dismiss a case because Trump appointed them.
Yeah. And it's not just the Supreme Court, it's the circuit court, it's the appellate court.
Yeah.
It's how things work their way up the court. When we think about the mifepristone, luckily,
Yes.
the mifepristone
Yes.
case, which is the access to the abortion pill, that started in Texas with an extremely conservative
Casimir,
judge.
yeah.
Yes, that then allowed it to even get to the Supreme Court. Now, Donald Trump had a record of appointing more white male judges than anybody, I think, in the history of like the last 5 presidents combined. Joe Biden has actually appointed more black female judges than I think any president combined.
Hey, Ketanji.
Yeah, and that's not even at the Supreme Court level. He made history with that, but just at every level. And
Benches.
so having people, we talked about last week how it's important to have prosecutors that look like us and that are from our communities. It's also important to have
Absolutely.
judges on the bench that look like us and represent our lived experience, because that is what, we can't have a democracy unless it looks and is representative of our entire country.
So, President Biden dropping out of the race, I'm just going to say, enjoy your retirement, homie. You in your 80s. Spend time with your great-great-great-great-grandkids.
He still has a couple more months to serve as president, so run it through the tape, Joe. Like, get more executive orders out there. And I just hope in this moment, when Joe Biden stepped aside and passed the torch, that Democrats do what is right and stand by the right candidate in this moment, which is the Vice President, Kamala Harris.
I agree with everything that both of you are saying, and thank you, President Biden, for your service to democracy. And I hope that in this moment, because of what we need to get over the line, that some of our former colleagues, the decision makers within the party, not only listen to diverse voices, so I will even be honest and say more than your usual black and brown voices you always listen to, bring in some even more, and triple down on the resources that are given to us in order to organize our communities, because while this has been what a lot of folks have called for, it is still a lot of chaos for us to try to decipher through between now and Election Day.
Yeah.
And so people closest to those who are going to choose the couch, give us the resources. And if you think we need 10, give us 30
Yeah.
in order to fill in that gap, because we are at a very critical moment right now, and we got to stop this infighting publicly.
But I will say that for the folks who took the last 3 or so weeks to be disappointed and want Joe Biden to step out, give some folks a couple days to be upset that he did.
That's right.
And so it's a process. Don't tell anybody to fall in line. Let folks be frustrated, because everybody did not want him to step out.
Right.
You got your way. Let folks mourn, grieve, and then bring us together as a party so that we can defeat fascism and authoritarianism in the fall.
And one last thing for me, thank you, President Biden, for forgiving my student loans.
Let me be next.
I paid mine off. I shouldn't have.
Girl, I got law school debt. It ain't never going
Sucker.
away. Ever. There's no way I could pay it off. I would have to win the lottery.
I need for President Biden to be
Making
making
it
it rain with
rain.
executive action, so we can be like, another one, thank you.
Yes.
Another one, thank you. So thank you, Joe Biden and Democrats. Don't mess this up.
Don't mess it
Because
up.
like we got a lot to lose.
That's right.
And y'all better bolster the Black woman. Don't sideline her.
I think we are building something here that is going to be hugely impactful, not just this year, but in so many years to come.
Being a part of a very historical moment, of like having some really critical conversations.
The debate is crazy. Modern whole media seems to be supremely focused on bringing real people into real conversation about real issues, and I want to be where real people are.
In this moment, I am finding hope in
The love that I have for my children.
Is the next generation.
the Black joy that I'm seeing around the country.
We need to tell our own stories. We need to not just be consumers, we need to shape the narrative.
The political climate that we're in, man, like having some really dope conversations is really important.
That gives me hope for tomorrow that we're going to be all right.
There's been a focus on gun violence after the attack on former President Trump, but the data shows that Black women are the most at risk. So on average, we are 6 times more likely to be murdered than our white peers between the years 1999 and 2020, according to Columbia University. We all know that gun violence plagues our communities. When President Biden addressed the NAACP, he framed the conversation this way.
You understand, we're going to talk about standing against violence, we're going to stand against all violence. We're going to stand against violence perpetrated against presidential candidates in Pennsylvania. We're standing against all violence. Violence perpetrated against George Floyd in Minnesota. Against Black veterans like police officers, Eugene Goodman, on January 6th. Black election workers like Kirby Freeman and Shane Moss in Atlanta. To stand against the violence and intimidation of white supremacy, the murder, innocent lives in the grocery store in Buffalo, New York when I went up there.
So what do you guys think about who gets empathy when it comes to gun violence?
Gun violence is an epidemic in our country. Young people, the thing that causes most death with children under the age of 18 is gun violence. I remember Uvalde. I mean, I was in high school when Columbine happened.
Yeah. I remember that.
And there have been so many mass shootings, the Pulse nightclub, the shooting in Charleston, South Carolina. And I feel like people get a lot of thoughts and prayers, but no action. So I did think it was interesting after the shooting that happened in Butler, PA at the Trump rally that God bless the soul that passed away, and that's so sad. But I think that the reaction was definitely different than how some people respond, including Donald Trump, to some gun violence. I think he has told some folks, like at the Parkland shooting, to just get over it. And so it's a real conversation we have to have. And I'm tired of thoughts and prayers. I just need action.
Well, I think about when this conversation started, and I appreciated that there were so many people who started directing this conversation to gun violence prevention, and to the point of what you just said, where is this energy when it comes to children? But President Obama said it when, Sandy Hook happened, that if we didn't really deal with gun violence and the mass shootings in this country, when these kids, these babies were dying, I don't know what else would, right? And it is disgusting to me that the answer that the Republican Party has is thoughts and prayers. Well, one, I'm a praying girl. I believe some Jesus. The Bible says faith without works is dead. So where to work at? Because y'all need to put together some policy proposals, but you can't because you are in the NRA's pockets. It is frustrating and challenging to me that their answer to this epidemic, this problem, is to arm teachers.
Yeah.
I'm a former teacher.
Me too.
My sister's a teacher. We don't want guns in our classroom.
Well,
we don't want to have metal detectors in our schools.
We don't.
There are other interventions.
And you know, teachers, well, here's what I will say. If a sheriff who saw this shooter on the building, or if a member of law enforcement was alerted about Uvalde, couldn't prevent those things from happening, what would arming a teacher actually do? This also happened, this shooting that Saturday also happened after, I forget what state it was, but they were talking about rolling out ammunition vending machines. And then so I do think about, this is not me shaming gun owners, because I actually have law-abiding gun owners in my family. I know, and my family members, my loved ones, my friends who are Black gun owners, they know that the Second Amendment protections look a little bit, look at Philando Castile. Right?
Yes.
Marissa Alexander, which I also immediately thought about that, right? Domestic violence incidents increase if there is a gun present in the household. A Black woman protecting herself from her abuser, it is not self-defense. She had to she went to prison because she defended herself from her abuser. And so I know that this is very complicated for Black gun owners who are seeing the reality of this violent nation we live in, and yet the laws are different, the rules are different for you.
I am a gun owner. I purchased my gun. I lived in Georgia in 2020. Shout out to me. I was the person who saved the democracy. I purchased a gun because I live in America. I hate guns. I don't want to be a part of that culture. When I hold a gun in my hand shakes, I sweat. I don't like that power. But I said, I live in this country. I need to know how to operate this machine. And that's why I got a gun. And me and a whole bunch of other Black women, I think in 2021, the statistic is gun ownership with Black women rose 87%. Wow. And I purchased my gun in Georgia, and it was a whole bunch of Black women and Asian people at the gun shop with a Trump Pence sign on the wall purchasing guns in Georgia in 2020, because I need to feel some semblance of safety in America, and apparently living in America means I need to know how to operate a firearm.
Because America is telling you as a Black woman that you are not safe,
yes.
Right? And even though you don't want to resort to having to own a gun, like I grew up in a world where my grandfather had a hunting gun, right? Like he would go hunt deer, and like that's fine. And now we're in a place where my Black family members feel as though we have to take protection into our own hands. And that is such an interesting duality when we're trying to reduce gun violence in our communities.
My dad had a gun, and I remember he bought a gun for my mom one Christmas. And we were like, what? And he was like, well, I travel for work, and it's just you girls. It's my sister, me, and my mom. He's like, you all need to be able to protect yourself. I have to say, I was one of those people who was like, I'm never gonna shoot a gun, I never wanna hold a gun. I have not purchased a gun, but the likelihood that I do get one in the next year is high. And it's not, I think I deserve to have one if I want one and hold it and bear it responsibly. But I just, if they have guns, I feel like I need.
That was it.
I don't want to show up. I don't want to fight. But if like it's gonna be a fight, I don't want to fight with a plastic fork and folks have actual ammunition. And I think that a lot of people feel that way. I also, heard people say at the RNC this week, like, oh my God, if Donald Trump actually would have been killed on Saturday, like the amount of guns we would have purchased would have like skyrocketed. And that makes me scared and nervous. And I think about being in DC on January 6th and thinking like, I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
And if you know better, perhaps do better.
Everything is Fine is that talk show that you always wish you had.
Watering Hole Media takes chances on people who may have big or small platforms but have a voice that matters.
We can really share and give opinions that people may not feel represented on television. Because everything is fine, right? Right? Wrong.
My unsolicited takes, if they're being solicited, oh yeah.
What gives me hope?
Are people...
Gen Z gives me hope.
And seeing that people care.
The fact that I know regardless of what happens in this world, we will always be okay because we have community.
I think it's so important to have spaces like this where we can come and just have real talk.
All right, ladies, I want to lighten it up a little bit. we checked in on how we're doing. We talked about some serious stuff, but as Black women do, I would love for us to give some Black women flowers. So, who you got to give your flowers to this week?
I want to give my flowers to the ladies of Sisters with Voices, Coco, Taj, and Lily, who've been holding it down since I was in middle school. Every Black girl wanted to be them and sing like them. I can do like a good talk sing, but they on tour right now, holding it down, and I love y'all.
What about you, Ashley?
So mine is a little heavier, but it is Tamiko Nash, who is the wife of Terrell Davis. And I'm not sure if you heard the story, but recently Terrell Davis was arrested on a cart for a false accusation of assault. And she is his wife. They have a beautiful Black family. And as she was watching her young children watch their father be unjustly escorted off the plane, she said, "Wait a minute." And it just made me think about us, think about the role Black women play in families, in our communities, as interveners, as intercessors. And I want to give a shout out to that whole family, but for Tamiko for holding it down and de-escalating the situation and making sure her husband was taken care of as well as her kids.
I love that. Shout out to Black women. I want to give my flowers to, so I saw Hell's Kitchen recently on Broadway. I actually was there for the 100th performance, and it was such a beautiful night. Shout out to Alicia Keys. That was phenomenal storytelling. In particular, Keisha Lewis, who won a Tony Award for supporting actress. She tore it down. I was in tears in her performance. It was just so beautiful, and it was this mothering while she was going through her own struggle, but her voice, that range, just the presence when she walked on stage. Oof, I'm getting chills thinking about it. So shout out to you, sis, and Alicia Keys and the whole ensemble of Hell's Kitchen, but Keisha, sis, whatever. I'm coming to see the show again, and I will see whatever you were in. She did a phenomenal job.
Okay, ladies. Yeah. We did it.
We did it.
We did it. Thank you for watching Wait a Minute. We want to know what you think about the topics we discussed. We want to know, leave a comment, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, and most importantly, we'll see you next week.